July 19, 2019. The world's most notorious drug lord enters a cell designed to break him. According to federal court records, Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, a man who escaped maximum security twice, now faces a prison built for one purpose: to ensure no one ever leaves. This is ADX Florence, the only federal Supermax prison in America. According to Bureau of Prisons data, it holds 400 of the most dangerous criminals on earth: terrorists, cartel leaders, cop killers, and a 99.9% retention rate, meaning almost no one ever transfers out alive. Inside these walls, El Chapo faces something he's never encountered: a system engineered to destroy hope itself. You're about to see how this prison operates, what El Chapo's daily existence looks like, and the psychological warfare designed to last a lifetime. But there's something most people don't know about ADX Florence. Something even El Chapo didn't understand. When those steel doors first closed, a hidden system inside the system, one that former inmates describe as worse than the concrete and steel. You'll see exactly what that means. Before this documentary ends, ADX Florence sits in the high desert of Colorado, 90 miles south of Denver. According to investigative reporting by the New York Times, it was constructed in 1994 with one mission: contain the uncontainable. The Bureau of Prisons calls it a clean version of hell. Former Warden Robert Hood told reporters, quote, "This place is not designed for humanity. Every detail here serves control. The facility cost $60 million to build. Every cell is 7 by 12 feet, smaller than a parking space. Walls are poured concrete, 12 inches thick. Windows are 4 inches wide, positioned so inmates can't see the ground or sky. Only empty air." Court documents from multiple civil rights lawsuits describe the acoustic design, soundproofing so complete that inmates report hearing only their own heartbeat. The isolation is surgical. According to federal testimony, 400 prisoners are held here, but they're divided into units. The worst of the worst go to Range 13, a special housing unit within the Supermax. This is where El Chapo was sent. Range 13 holds roughly 20 inmates. According to prison officials, it's reserved for those deemed the highest security risk in the federal system. Inmates who've killed in custody, leaders of international criminal organizations, men the government believes will never be safe. In general population, anywhere. Former inmates who've been released from ADX describe Range 13 in consistent terms. One told Human Rights Watch, "It's not designed to punish you for what you did. It's designed to erase who you are." But why does the entire federal prison system fear this one man so much? To understand why El Chapo ended up here, you need to understand his history. Joaquín Guzmán wasn't just a cartel leader. He became a legend for doing the impossible. January 19, 2001. Court records show Guzmán escaped Mexico's Puente Grande maximum security prison, hidden in a laundry cart, allegedly with help from guards he'd bribed. The Mexican government was humiliated. He remained free for 13 years. Ran the Sinaloa cart, one of the largest drug trafficking organizations in history. The estimates suggest his cartel moved cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine worth billions annually. February 2014. Captured again in Mazatlan, Mexico. Sent to Altiplano maximum security prison. Supposedly escape-proof. July 11, 2015. According to Mexican federal investigators, Guzmán escaped through a tunnel, dug directly beneath his cell shower. The tunnel stretched nearly a mile, equipped with lighting, ventilation, a motorcycle on rails. The engineering was extraordinary. The embarrassment, worse. The message was clear. El Chapo could escape from anywhere. He had money. He had loyalty. He had power that extended through concrete walls. When he was finally extradited to the United States, in January 2017, federal authorities knew they couldn't take chances. According to court filings, prosecutors argued Guzmán posed an extreme and unparalleled flight risk. They requested the most secure facility in America. But here's what most people don't understand. ADX Florence wasn't just about preventing another escape. It was about something darker. According to depositions from former ADX psychologists, the prison serves a dual function. Yes, it incapacitates, but it also demonstrates. It sends a message to anyone in the criminal world. If you reach the top, this is where you'll end up. Alive. Alone. Forever. After his conviction in February 2019, El Chapo was sentenced to life plus 30 years. No parole. No appeal that could realistically succeed. And on July 19, 2019, according to Bureau of Prisons records, he was transferred to ADX Florence, Range 13, Cell 205. The cell where he will die. If you want to see how extreme isolation changes the human mind, hit subscribe. We're breaking down the psychological tactics used in America's darkest prisons. Inside ADX Florence, survival isn't about strength. It's about understanding the system that controls every second of your existence. Former inmates and whistleblower reports reveal 3 unwritten rules that determine who breaks first. Rule number 1. Never expect human contact. According to federal court testimony in Cunningham versus Federal Bureau of Prisons, ADX inmates spend 23 hours per day, alone in their cells. The 24th hour is recreation, which means moving to a slightly larger concrete box, still alone, still under camera surveillance. Dr. Craig Haney, a psychologist who studied ADX for multiple lawsuits, testified that inmates can go weeks without seeing another human face. Guards communicate through food slots. Meals arrive on trays, slid through a narrow opening. The slot closes. The footsteps fade. One former ADX inmate, released after 7 years, told ProPublica, "You start talking to yourself because you forget what your own voice sounds like. Then you start answering yourself. Then you realize you've gone somewhere you can't come back from." For El Chapo, who once commanded thousands of men, who communicated through networks spanning continents, this is the first weapon. Remove his power by removing all connection to humanity. Rule number 2. Time becomes your enemy. In ADX Florence, according to multiple inmate accounts, there are no clocks visible in cells, no calendars, no windows showing day or night cycles clearly. Former inmate Thomas Silverstein, who spent 36 years in solitary before his death in 2019, described time at ADX as existing in a permanent present tense. Days blur, weeks vanish, years become meaningless. Court documents from a 2012 class action lawsuit revealed inmates develop what psychologists call temporal disorientation. They lose the ability to track time mentally. Some forget their own ages. Others develop obsessive counting behaviors, counting footsteps, heartbeats, scratches on walls. For El Chapo, who escaped twice by planning meticulously over months, this is the second weapon. Make time impossible to track, impossible to use. Rule number 3. Resist the wrong way and it gets worse. According to a 2019 report by the Center for Constitutional Rights, ADX Florence operates on a tier system. Inmates start in the most restrictive conditions. Good behavior can earn marginal privileges over years. An extra hour of recreation, a radio, a chance to call family monthly instead of quarterly. But act out? Refuse orders? You don't just lose privileges. According to former corrections officers interviewed by the Marshall Project, inmates can be moved to disciplinary status, which means even less human contact, additional restrictions, months added to their timeline for any improvement. One documented case from 2015 involved an inmate who threw his food tray at a guard. According to the incident report, he spent the next 18 months in disciplinary segregation. No recreation, no phone calls, meals reduced to basic nutrition requirements only. The system is designed to train compliance, not through violence, but through the slow removal. of everything that makes existence bearable. But there's something deeper happening here. Something the Bureau of Prisons doesn't advertise. The system inside the system. That even most guards don't fully understand. What most people don't know about ADX Florence is this. The physical isolation is just the beginning. According to leaked documents and whistleblower testimony, the prison employs sophisticated psychological conditioning techniques, borrowed from military interrogation research. Start with sound. Dr. Stuart Gracian, a psychiatrist who studied solitary confinement for Harvard Medical School, examined ADX's acoustic design in 2006. His findings, submitted in federal court. The prison is engineered for auditory deprivation. Cells are soundproofed so completely that inmates report a constant, low-level ringing. Tinnitus induced by the absence of ambient noise. According to Gracian's testimony, prolonged auditory deprivation can cause hallucinations. Inmates hear voices, music that isn't playing, conversations in empty rooms. But it's not total silence. Guards communicate over radios. Doors slam. Electronic locks buzz. And according to former inmates, these sounds are irregular, unpredictable. You can't anticipate them. You can't prepare. This creates what psychologists call hypervigilance. Your nervous system stays activated, waiting for the next stimulus. That never comes on schedule. Sleep becomes fragmented. Stress hormones remain elevated. Months of this rewires the brain. Then there are the cameras. According to a 2017 Bureau of Prisons operational manual, obtained through FOIA requests, every cell in range 13 has a camera, positioned to capture the entire space. Every movement, every moment. Former ADX officer David Hemler told reporters, "They watch everything. When you sleep, when you use the toilet, when you break down and cry. And they want you to know they're watching." This is panopticon theory in practice, a concept developed by philosopher Jeremy Bentham. The prisoner can't see the observer, but knows observation is possible at any moment. This creates self-policing behavior. You monitor yourself because you assume they're always monitoring you. For someone like El Chapo, who built power through secrecy and hidden communication, this is psychological warfare. There are no secrets here. No privacy. No self. Communication is weaponized. According to federal regulations, ADX inmates can send and receive letters, but every word is screened. Special investigative services officers read everything. Look for codes. Analyze word choices. Court records from El Chapo's trial show prosecutors used intercepted communications to build their case. At ADX, according to Bureau of Prisons policy, any letter deemed suspicious can be rejected entirely. No explanation required. Phone calls? According to the ADX Inmate Handbook, Range 13 prisoners can request calls, but must apply weeks in advance. Calls are limited to 15 minutes. All conversations are recorded and monitored in real time. Officers can terminate calls without warning. One documented case from 2018 involved an inmate whose call to his dying mother was disconnected after 8 minutes because he allegedly used a phrase that violated communication protocols. According to his legal appeal, he never got to say goodbye. Here's what's really disturbing. According to a 2021 investigation by The Intercept, ADX Florence has a severe shortage of mental health resources, despite housing inmates in conditions psychologists classify as torture. The facility employs only a handful of psychiatrists for 400 prisoners. Inmates experiencing psychological breakdown, hallucinations, panic attacks, suicidal ideation can wait weeks for evaluation. According to court testimony in Baycoat versus Federal Bureau of Prisons, one inmate attempted suicide 3 times before receiving psychiatric intervention, and treatment often means more isolation. According to federal policy, inmates on suicide watch are placed in observation cells, stripped of all belongings, given paper gowns, watched 24/7 by cameras. Former inmates describe this as more traumatic than the original crisis. The cruelty is the system itself. You break down from isolation. The response? More isolation. For El Chapo specifically, according to reports from his attorneys and Bureau of Prisons filings, conditions are even more restrictive. As a SAMS inmate, special administrative measures, his communication is almost entirely cut off. SAMS are federal restrictions applied to inmates deemed national security threats or ongoing criminal enterprise leaders. According to the Center for Constitutional Rights, only about 50 federal inmates are under SAMS at any time. What does this mean practically? Attorney visits are limited and monitored. All conversations with lawyers are recorded, unless specifically approved by the Department of Justice, process that can take months. Family visits? According to his legal team, El Chapo has had fewer than a dozen family visits. Since 2019, his wife, Emma Cronell, was herself arrested in 2021 on drug trafficking charges. His sons run competing cartel factions in Mexico. According to law enforcement analysis, the federal government's strategy is clear. Isolate him completely from any organizational connection. Sever every thread of influence. But does it work? Can you truly destroy a man's power by destroying his connection to the world? The answer reveals something disturbing about human psychology. If you're ready to see what isolation really does to the human mind, tap that like button and drop a comment. We're going deeper to understand what El Chapo faces for the rest of his life. You need to see what ADX does to human beings. Not statistics, not theories. Real documented cases of men who entered this system and what happened to them. Start with Thomas Silverstein. According to Bureau of Prisons records, he arrived at ADX Florence in the mid-1990s, already having spent years in solitary. At other facilities, his crime? Killing a corrections officer. At USP Marion in 1983, Silverstein would spend the next 36 years in continuous solitary confinement, the longest documented case in federal prison history. Attorneys who visited him in later years described a man who'd developed severe psychological deterioration. According to court filings from his legal team, Silverstein experienced visual and auditory hallucinations. He reported seeing faces in the concrete walls, hearing conversations through solid steel. His sense of reality had fractured. In a rare interview authorized by the Bureau of Prisons in 2006, Silverstein told a reporter, "I've been buried alive. That's the only way to describe it. I'm a living corpse." He died at ADX Florence in 2019, at age 67. According to his death certificate, cause of death, heart complications. But attorneys familiar with his case argue the real cause was 36 years of psychological torture. Another case, Ramzi Youssef, the mastermind of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. According to federal court records, Youssef has been at ADX Florence since 2005. Youssef's attorneys filed a lawsuit in 2015, alleging unconstitutional treatment. According to their court filings, Youssef has lost significant vision in both eyes due to lack of proper medical care and the strain of reading in poor lighting for years. The lawsuit documents claim he experiences chronic migraines, severe depression, and what psychiatrists diagnosed as isolation-induced cognitive decline. He's 56 years old. He's been in solitary for nearly 20 years. According to testimony from Dr. Terry Cupers, a forensic psychiatrist who evaluated him, Youssef shows classic symptoms of SHU syndrome, solitary housing unit syndrome. This includes anxiety, paranoia, difficulty concentrating, and emotional flatness. The lawsuit was dismissed. Federal courts ruled his confinement, while harsh, did not violate constitutional protections against cruel and unusual punishment. He remains in range 13. Consider Tyler Bingham. According to court records, Bingham was a high-ranking member of the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang. Convicted of ordering murders from inside prison, he arrived at ADX Florence in 2006. Bingham's case is different because we have detailed documentation of his psychological decline through legal filings and medical records submitted in appeals. When he entered ADX, psychiatric evaluations showed no major mental illness. After 8 years in range 13, according to a 2014 psychiatric evaluation, Bingham had developed severe anxiety disorder, depression, and symptoms consistent with PTSD. He reported nightmares, panic attacks, an inability to remember basic biographical facts about his own life. His attorneys submitted testimony from Dr. Craig Haney, who stated, "The conditions Mr. Bingham endures are incompatible with mental health. The human mind is not designed to function in this environment." Bingham remains at ADX. According to the most recent status reports, he has been denied mental health transfers multiple times. The Bureau of Prisons argues his security threat level overrides medical considerations. Then there's Mohammed Salameh, another 1993 World Trade Center bombing conspirator. According to investigative reporting by The Guardian, Salameh has been in solitary at ADX since the early 2000s. What makes his case notable is the documented communication breakdown. According to his legal team, Salameh's native language is Arabic. ADX Florence has extremely limited Arabic-speaking staff. For years, according to court filings, he struggled to communicate basic needs. A 2016 lawsuit alleged he was denied adequate medical care because he couldn't explain symptoms in English. The case revealed that Salameh had developed a severe skin condition that went untreated for months because medical staff couldn't understand his requests for help. The lawsuit was eventually settled, with the Bureau of Prisons agreeing to provide better translation services. But according to advocacy groups monitoring his case, implementation has been inconsistent at best. Here's the pattern across all these cases. ADX Florence doesn't just hold prisoners. According to psychiatric experts who've studied the facility, it systematically degrades mental function. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Law and Medicine analyzed 100 former solitary confinement inmates. The findings: 78% showed symptoms of psychological trauma. 62% developed new mental illnesses during confinement. 40% exhibited symptoms lasting years after release. Dr. Terry Cupers, who has testified in multiple ADX-related lawsuits, puts it bluntly: prolonged solitary confinement, as practiced at ADX Florence, causes permanent brain damage. This isn't hyperbole. MRI studies show measurable changes in brain structure. And here's the darkest part. According to Bureau of Prisons statistics, obtained through FOIA requests, the average time served at ADX before transfer or release is 8 years. But many inmates, including El Chapo, are designated to never leave, which means the psychological deterioration doesn't have an end point. It just continues, compounding, year after year, until death. So what about El Chapo specifically? According to his attorneys, who visit periodically under strict supervision, Joaquín Guzmán is showing signs of decline. In a 2022 legal filing, his defense team stated he's lost significant weight, developed insomnia, experiences frequent headaches. These are classic symptoms of isolation-induced stress. But there's something else. According to attorney Jose Refugio Rodriguez, who visited El Chapo in 2021, his client has become increasingly withdrawn. Quote, he speaks less, makes less eye contact. There's a flatness that wasn't there before. This is what psychologists call emotional blunting, a protective mechanism the brain develops under extreme stress. You shut down emotional responses to survive the environment. But once it starts, it's difficult to reverse. Remember, El Chapo is 67 years old. According to his life sentence, he will remain at ADX Florence until he dies. That could be 10 years, 20 years, longer. The question isn't whether the isolation will affect him. It's how much of his mind will remain. By the end, here's what makes ADX Florence different. From the Mexican prisons El Chapo escaped. It's not just the physical security, though that's formidable. According to a 2018 security audit, ADX Florence has pressure sensors beneath the ground, extending 30 feet from the outer walls. Seismic detectors that can sense vibrations from tunneling. Motion-activated cameras, covering every inch of perimeter. But the real security is human. According to former warden Robert Hood, ADX operates on a zero-trust model. Guards rotate assignments constantly. No officer works the same post 2 days in a row. This prevents relationship building, the kind of relationships El Chapo exploited in Mexico. Plus, corruption risks are minimized through surveillance. According to the security manual, guards are watched as closely as inmates. Their communications are monitored. Their financial records checked regularly. Any suspicious behavior triggers investigation. And even if somehow, impossibly, an inmate escaped their cell, they'd face 12 layers of security between Range 13 and the outside world. Steel doors requiring multiple codes, guard checkpoints, biometric scanners, armed response teams. According to Bureau of Prisons official statements, no inmate has ever escaped from ADX Florence. Not one. In 30 years of operation. For a man who built his legend on escaping the inescapable, this is the ultimate defeat. Not because he can't try, but because trying is meaningless. But here's the truth most people miss. The real purpose of ADX Florence, specifically Range 13, specifically for someone like El Chapo, isn't punishment, it's erasure. According to interviews with former DEA officials and federal prosecutors, El Chapo's imprisonment serves a broader strategy. The Sinaloa cartel didn't disappear. When he was arrested, his sons, known as Los CHAPO'S, continue operations. But according to law enforcement analysis, the cartel's power structure has fractured. In 2022, the Congressional Research Service published a report on Mexican cartels. It found that since El Chapo's extradition, the Sinaloa cartel has split into competing factions, weakened by infighting. This is the goal. By isolating El Chapo so completely, no meaningful communication with the outside world, no way to issue orders or maintain loyalty, the U.S. government is banking on organizational collapse. Former federal prosecutor Patrick J. Burns explained in a 2021 interview, "You don't just arrest a cartel leader. You need to make them invisible. Cut every connection. Let the organization cannibalize itself. Without leadership." It's working. According to today intelligence reports, Los CHAPO'S have allied with rival factions, then turned on each other. Violence in Sinaloa has increased as factions fight for control. The organization El Chapo built is consuming itself. But there's another purpose. According to criminology researchers, ADX Florence serves as what they call demonstrative punishment. Dr. Benjamin Fleury-Steiner, who studied Supermax prisons for Princeton University, argues that facilities like ADX exist partly to send a message. No matter how powerful you become, no matter how much money or influence, the state can reduce you to nothing. Think about it. El Chapo commanded a billion-dollar empire, had armies of soldiers, bribed presidents and generals, escaped from maximum security twice. And now, according to Bureau of Prisons visitor logs, he receives a handful of family visits per year. His communication is monitored and censored. He controls nothing, influences no one. This is the message ADX sends to anyone considering that path. You can win for decades, but the ending is always the same. A concrete box. Alone. Forever. And here's where it gets complicated. Multiple human rights organizations have challenged ADX Florence's practices. According to Amnesty International reports, prolonged solitary confinement meets the UN definition of torture. In 2012, the Center for Constitutional Rights filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of ADX inmates, arguing conditions violate the Eighth Amendment prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. The case, Cunningham v. Federal Bureau of Prisons, produced disturbing testimony. Psychiatrists described inmates with severe mental illness, self-mutilation, suicide attempts, permanent psychological damage. In 2016, the case was partially settled. The Bureau of Prisons agreed to limit the amount of time mentally ill inmates could spend in solitary and provide better mental health screening. But here's the catch. According to the settlement terms, these protections don't apply to inmates designated high-security risks for non-mental health reasons. Meaning someone like El Chapo, deemed a security threat, can still be held indefinitely in the same conditions. In 2023, according to public filings, El Chapo's attorneys filed a complaint about his conditions. They argued his treatment violates human rights standards. The complaint was reviewed by the Department of Justice, and according to official response documents, denied. The government's position remains. El Chapo's security threat level justifies any level of restriction. His past escapes prove he can't be trusted with even minimal privileges. But here's the darkest irony. According to a 2022 investigation by The Intercept, ADX Florence costs approximately $60,000 per inmate per year, 3 times the cost of a regular federal prison. With 400 inmates, that's $24 million annually. And what does that money buy? According to the investigation, a system that creates severe mental illness, offers inadequate treatment, and produces prisoners more damaged than when they arrived. Former Warden Robert Hood, who left ADX in protest, told reporters in 2020, "We're not making anyone safer. We're creating broken people. And when some of them eventually get released, they're more dangerous than before because we've destroyed their ability to function in society." Of course, El Chapo will never be released. He will die in that cell. But what about the others? According to Bureau of Prisons data, approximately 30% of ADX inmates are eventually transferred to lower security facilities or released. And what happens to them? A 2019 study tracked 50 former ADX inmates after release. Within 5 years, 40% were reincarcerated. 65% showed signs of severe mental illness. 15% had attempted suicide. The system doesn't rehabilitate. It doesn't even effectively punish. What it does, according to psychiatric experts, is break human beings in ways that can't be repaired. So zoom out. What does ADX Florence represent in the bigger picture of American justice? According to 2023 statistics from the Prison Policy Initiative, the United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world. Approximately 2 million people behind bars. And within that system, according to human rights researchers, between 80,000 and 100,000 are held in some form of solitary confinement. ADX Florence is the extreme end of that spectrum. But according to advocacy groups, the practices pioneered here, prolonged isolation, sensory deprivation, psychological conditioning, have spread to state prisons across the country. The Southern Poverty Law Center documented 61 Supermax facilities or solitary units operating in the U.S. as of 2021. Many use ADX's model. So when you look at El Chapo in his 7x12 cell, you're not just seeing one man's punishment. You're seeing a philosophy of control. One that says the worst among us deserve to be reduced to nothing, even if the process destroys their humanity. If this documentary opened your eyes to what really happens inside America's most secretive prisons, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment with your thoughts. This story needs to be told. On July 19, 2019, Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán entered ADX Florence. According to all available evidence, he will never leave. He ran a billion-dollar empire, commanded thousands, escaped the inescapable twice. And now he exists in a space smaller than a parking spot, watched by cameras, hearing only his own thoughts, counting the years until his body fails. According to his attorney's most recent statements, El Chapo maintains he was unfairly prosecuted, that his trial was rigged, that his sentence is disproportionate. These claims have been repeatedly rejected by federal courts. But regardless of guilt or innocence, regardless of whether you believe he deserves this fate, the question remains, what does it say about our society that we've built a system designed to psychologically destroy human beings? Former Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy once said about solitary confinement, years on end of near-total isolation exact a terrible price. He was speaking about California's Supermax system, but the words apply equally to ADX Florence. According to the most recent data, El Chapo is now 67 years old. If he lives to 80, that's 13 more years in that cell. If he lives to 90, it's 23 years. Decades of concrete and silence and cameras and deterioration. And the cartel he built? According to 2024 DEA reports, it's fractured but not destroyed. New leaders have emerged. Violence continues. The drug trade adapts and survives. So in the end, what was accomplished? El Chapo is neutralized. But the system that produced him? The demand for drugs that fueled his empire? The corruption that enabled his escapes? All of that continues. ADX Florence stands in the Colorado desert, a monument to control, a demonstration of state power, and inside 400 human beings, some monsters, some mentally ill, some both, slowly lose their minds. This is the cell no one escapes from. Not because the walls are unbreakable, but because by the time you could theoretically leave, there's nothing left of who you were to escape. If you want to understand more about America's prison system and the facilities most people never hear about, check out our documentary.